right, so I'm here with Memphis, this little 4-year-old reservation Mustang. So he has come into training to get started under saddle. I get the privilege of working with him for the next 3 months. But so far, I've only had him for about 4 days. This is my 4th session with him. And so I'm just gonna kind of go through and show you guys what his very first ride under saddle looks like. This horse was super well behaved, super easygoing, and I'm having an absolute blast working with him. So I like to start out with just some ground driving with a lot of my young horses when I'm prepping to put their first ride on them. And so here you can see I just have a lunge line put through his stirrup, and then that's connected just straight to his rope halter. And so this is just such a great way to get these horses used to steering. Also, you know, making sure they're comfortable around their back end and like me following behind them. So it's just like an extra step that I can check before I hop on is like, do they steer? Do they stop? Are they okay with, you know, like different things behind them? They don't have any really spooky areas. And so here we're just working on a halt, and you can see he was kind of resistant there. So I just kind of held steady pressure till he gave, and then I softened. And I like to reward a lot with my voice. So I'll tell him like, you're doing so good, or good boy. So we just practice that halt again. I'm going to ask him to take a few steps of back up, just soften to that halter. That was much more relaxed. Really nice. This horse really is such a nice Mustang. He's just a little 4-year-old, and he is doing phenomenal. I love all of his polka dots. So here we're moving him up into a trot, and I was actually super happy with that transition. It was not rushed or anxious or any way like that. It was just a nice little transition here. So I'm asking him to come back to a walk, and you can see that's where he gets a little bit bracy. So that head came up for a second. He wasn't sure what to do, but then remembered that meant slow down, and then was nice and relaxed. So just practicing another halt, another couple steps of back up, letting him sit for a second, and then we're going to move right back up. And so this is just like prepping him for that ride. I want a really nice transition, so up into our trot, but then also knowing how to come back to that pressure on the halter. So for our walk and halt and back up, so that's already installed when I climb on. You can see here he got a little bit anxious, isn't sure quite what I'm asking, so I'm just asking him to go on a smaller circle here. So using a lot of that inside rein, and then encouraging him with the stick to just keep his trot. And then moving into a couple reverses across the round pen. And you can see here when he changes eyes, he gets a little bit tense there. Wasn't quite sure what I was asking. Really, he's holding it together well, but you can just kind of tell by his demeanor, he is a little bit confused here. So I'm just going to keep asking him to keep trotting around. We're going to practice lots of reverses, so cutting across the round pen, then changing direction. So he broke to a walk for his change here. Stayed much more relaxed, a little bit scooty at the end there. And so we're just going to have him keep reversing directions across the round pen until he kind of settles out and can do it at a nice, easy trot. So got a little bit spooked by that rein that's going around his rump. No big deal. I liked how he thought through it, didn't red zone, did a little scoot, but nothing bad. And so I'm just going to have him keep trotting here. Keep trotting. He kind of really wants to look the outside of the round pen at that stirrup. That right side is his little bit of a ticklish side there. And so we're just going to keep working through it. Ask him for a little halt here. So I'm just going to wait, hold till he stops his feet. Then I loosen, telling him that was the correct answer. Ask him for a couple steps of back up. Really nice there. Then we're going to have him move back up again. So lots and lots of transitions. He moves into a nice little walk, pick up that trot. And we're going to go back to those transitions across the round pen again. Because really, I want him to already know how to like change directions, get that steering really solidified before I climb on. So then the only thing we really have to change is someone actually being on his back and a little bit of leg pressure. So if he already knows my vocal commands to like move forward, and then also knows how to steer and stop off the halter from our ground driving, we're going to be setting him up for hopefully a really successful first ride. So here we're just working on those reverses, and like that one was actually very smooth, and that's what I'm looking for, is for him to just keep that nice cadence trot as we're reversing directions, changing those eyes, you want it to look smooth. You don't want it to look rushed. You don't want it to feel tense. You want him to be nice and relaxed, nice and smooth, and just able to nicely trot through this kind of serpentine figure 8 exercise. And so now he's really starting to figure it out. He's holding that nice consistent trot, making these turns look nice and smooth. And that was a very soft back halt, and then up into his back up. And so this is what I was looking for. He's being willing, he's listening, he's understanding the different aids that I'm asking him to do, or the different things that I'm asking him to do. He's being light off my rein aids. And so we're going to end our ground driving right there because it was feeling really good. We don't need to drill it anymore. And I'm ready to move on to some more things to help prep him for that first ride. So here I have taken off the lunge lines that I was using, and I put his lead rope back on. And so I'm just moving his stirrups around, making sure there's no ticklish areas with those stirrups on both his near and off side. I want to make sure he's all feeling good. And so then I take my lead line here and I'm going to tie it around his halter. So this will work as my reins. So I like to do first rides in just a rope halter. We'll add the bit in later, but the horse already knows the halter because we lead him, we lunge him, and I even ground drove in it. So I'm just going to ride him in this. And also if he had anything silly about his teeth, we don't have to deal with that today. So there's no pain associated or anything like that. And he doesn't yet know how to give to the pressure of the bit. So we'll start introducing that on the ground at a later date. But here I just have my dressage stick on the outside, and I'm asking him to trot forwards and stay on a small circle. This is what I call riding from the ground. So you can see I'm where the rider would be, standing next to him, using my inside rein to keep him on a circle, and then using my stick just to ask him to move forward. And then here I've swapped, and I'm actually asking him to trot off of the stirrup. So I'm squeezing with the stirrup like I will be when I am on him with my leg. And so anything I teach him is like, when I bump, I want you to move off into the trot, but still listen to that rein and not like blow up. So then I do everything on the off side as well. This is just making sure that he's comfortable on both eyes. He understands the concept and that he's understanding it fully so that he doesn't get stressed out or anything like that. Did it really nice. This horse is so smart. So that was with the whip on the outside, asking him to trot forward. Now I'm going to swap, use the stirrup to ask him to trot. So you can see here, I'm just bouncing it on the inside, kind of there on his barrel, just like my foot would be doing. I want him to stay on a nice little circle, but start thinking about moving up into that trot. And he's doing really nice. You can see he's not too bracy against that halter there. He's keeping a nice even pace. He doesn't care that I'm on his offside. So really nice there. So here, I'm getting ready to climb on. I always kind of like petting them on their rump. He wasn't quite sure what I was asking, so I just stayed with him. I want him to stand still, keeping that head bent in. And I'm just going to stay with him until he stops his feet. He's like a little bit fidgety. So then now that he stopped, I put my foot in the stirrup and step up. I always like to rub them with my foot on their rump just to get them used to that. I don't want them to freak out when I by accident clumsily climb off and hit them in the rump. So just checking all my bases. I like to move around, make sure that he knows I'm up there and that it's no big deal. One of the biggest things on babies is you don't want to hop up there and then be super quiet and still, because then when you move by accident, they'll like freak out and then you end up running around the round pen. So I want him to be fully aware that I'm up there, that I am clumsy, that I move around, that my body weight shifts from side to side, that I go up and down. And so when we start moving forwards, he isn't caught off guard by my leg flapping or anything like that. So just giving him the best chance I can to understand what I'm asking. And so here I'm just asking him to walk forwards. He has had one bareback ride before now, so he already sort of understands leg cues, and then he already knows that backup from like our ground driving stuff. So you can see here, I'm just asking, I'm using my leg here, just kind of squeezing, and then the minute he starts walking, I take my legs off and I ride in a neutral. So just like nice and quiet. As long as he's moving forwards, I'm not going to be squeezing him forward, but if he starts slowing down, I'm going to start adding that leg. So just bumps, And you'll see I move around from occasion, and that's just me kind of being silly, wanting to see, like, is he okay with me posting at the walk? Is he okay with this or that? You can see here he got a little bit tense, so I'm just going to take him a little circle. He's steering around really nice. And we're going to start he's getting a little bit tense here, and I want him to start moving up into a little bit of a trot. I don't like to stay in the walk too long. I want him to start moving out forward freely. Oh. And you can see he got a little bit silly there. He was like, huh, why are you using your leg? And just a little kick out, and then he moved up into a beautiful trot there. And so I'm going to give him lots of praise, because that's all I was asking. Just like 1 or 2 steps to trot, then he gets a little break. Like I let him know that he's the world's best little pony ever, telling him that that was the correct answer. And then we're going to move forward and do it again. So, I'm going to have him walk forward, so bump up those feet, a little bit of inside rein, telling him to turn that way. And then we're going to move right on up into that trot again. He has a little bit of attitude, so I'm just kind of turning him in a circle, keeping my leg pressure on. So I'm bump, bump, bump until he trots. So I'm just going to keep asking. I can kind of use my rein as an over-under a little bit, just to give him a little bit of encouragement on his shoulder there. And I'm just going to hold the pressure until he takes 1 step a trot. So holding the pressure with my legs. Now sit quiet. Kind of steering him around. He's getting a little bit sticky here, so I'm just going to keep that pressure on. Quiet. And then right here, we're just looking for a little bit of a walk, because he got really sticky. So we're just going to keep asking him to move forwards, working towards that trot. I think he wanted to stop there, so just give him a little tap on the shoulder, encouraging him to move forward freely, because right now he's a little bit bulky. He doesn't quite know what I want. He also just isn't sure about me being on him. He's like, why is this crazy person on me? So I'm just looking for him to start moving out a little bit more forward. So having him turn in that circle a little bit. He's a little bit stiff. Now we're going to move back up into that trot now that he's walking nice again. So just a little push, little kick. He kind of likes to sag back. Like instead of moving up, he likes to slow down when he got the pressure. So right there, that was just like 2 steps to trot. Walk. And so I'm ride really soft. Let him know that that was the correct answer.
No, it wasn't.
Because the thing is, I want to reward the smallest amount of try. I don't want to push him too hard where he freaks out, but I need him to start like thinking forward thoughts. So the minute that he thinks about going forward freely, that's when I stop, I praise, and tell him he's the best little pony ever. So here we're going to move back up, going for that trot again. You can see he's kind of slowing down. He really doesn't want to move out, and now we picked up a nice little trot. That was really nice. So he moved forward super. We got several strides of the trot. I just rode really quiet, and then he stopped, and we're going to give him lots of praise. So we really want to reward any time that he trots, especially when it's so nice and quiet like that. You can see I got some good licks and chews here. He's figuring out what we're looking for him to do, and so we're going to ask him to go and do it again. This horse is so smart, so cute. What a pleasure. So moving right on up into that trot. Keep the pressure on. And then the minute he trots, I just ride nice and soft, nice and forward. I'm going to encourage him to keep trotting past this area. Want him to start moving out more and more.
Go, go,
kind of wants to walk, so I'm just going to keep pushing for this trot. Keep pushing for this trot. Oh, he got a little silly. Move him right back up into that trot. He needs to get going forwards. Oh, a little bit silly there. So just move him right back up. Keep that trot. Really nice. Now he's going around super cute. So I'll let him stop right there. So we just had to work through a little bit of like this very, very minor attitude. And so once he gave me like a nice moment when he was trying, then I let him sit and think about it. What I don't want to do is when he's silly, give him a reward out of place. So if he like decides to try and buck and I immediately make him stop and I just sit there, that's going to reward bad behavior. So I want to make sure whenever he's being naughty, I'm going to push him through those moments. And then the minute that he decides he's going to be super sweet and nice, that's when I stop, praise, and let him know that that was the correct answer. It's rewarding the right answer and the behavior that we want him to duplicate. And making sure that we discourage any naughty behavior or naughty thoughts. So right here, this trot's beautiful. He's really moving out. I stopped him in a different place this time. Give him lots of praise. and I decided to hop off there because when I asked, he moved it to a nice trot without any attitude, no resistance. When I picked up on my reins, he stopped. And so for him, that's where I'm calling it, because this is just our first ride. We'll ask him for more and more tomorrow, but he did so nicely, worked through some things, and we ended on a great note.